chosen one, God saw every tear. Now favor is repaying you. There are moments when heaven grows quiet, not because God is absent, but because he is working too deeply to be loud. If you are listening to this, it is not by accident. You have carried weight that few ever noticed. You endured seasons where obedience cost you comfort, where faith demanded silence, and where trusting God meant walking forward without explanation. You were tested in private, pressed without applause, and stretched beyond what felt reasonable. Yet you stayed. You did not quit. You did not abandon God, even when life seemed to abandon you. God has been watching every tear, every restrained reaction, every prayer whispered instead of shouted. Scripture makes this clear. In Psalm chapter 56, verse 8, it says that God keeps record of our sorrows and collects our tears in his bottle. That means nothing you endured slipped past his attention. The waiting did not erase your worth. The delay did not cancel the promise. It refined you. There is a holy exchange taking place now. What once drained you is about to repay you. God does not ask his chosen ones to endure without intention. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, it says that we will reap in due season if we do not grow weary in doing good. Due season is not a vague hope, it is a fixed appointment, and when it arrives, it carries favor with it. Favor is not random kindness. It is God's response to faithfulness under pressure. It is heaven stepping in to settle what earth never could. You are standing at the edge of repayment, not because you demanded it, but because you endured with trust. Stay attentive. Stay grounded. What God is about to release will make sense of every moment you thought was wasted. God counts what others never acknowledged. There is a kind of suffering that does not leave visible scars, but it reshapes a person from the inside. You lived through moments where no one clapped for your obedience. You showed up when it would have been easier to disappear. You chose integrity when compromise would have brought faster relief. And in those moments, it may have felt as though your faithfulness vanished into silence. But heaven never operates on human recognition. God counts what people overlook. Scripture confirms this with quiet authority. In Hebrews chapter 6, verse 10, it says that God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown him, as you have helped his people and continued to help them. That verse does not say God remembers only the visible victories. It says he remembers the work, the unseen consistency, the quiet obedience, the restrained reactions, the prayers you prayed while holding back tears. You endured seasons where you were misunderstood, mislabeled, or even ignored. Others may have assumed you were weak because you did not fight back, or passive because you did not defend yourself. But God saw discipline, not weakness. He saw strength under control. In Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32, it says that one who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and one who rules his spirit than one who takes a city. That means every moment you chose restraint over reaction was counted as victory in the spiritual realm. God also counts the endurance that did not make sense to anyone else. The waiting that stretched longer than expected. The promises that seemed delayed beyond reason. In Psalm chapter 105, verse 19, speaking of Joseph, it says that, until the time his word came to pass, the word of the Lord tested him. Testing is not abandonment. It is confirmation that something valuable is being prepared. What you endured was not ignored, it was recorded. And God does not record things without intention to respond. Favor is never released without reason. It arrives as heaven's acknowledgement that you remained faithful when quitting would have been justified. What others never saw is now positioning you for what they cannot deny. The season that broke you was also preparing you. There are seasons that feel like they are undoing you, stripping away confidence, certainty, and even joy. You may have wondered how something that painful could possibly be part of God's plan. But God does not waste pain, especially in the life of a chosen one. The season that broke you emotionally was shaping you spiritually. In Isaiah chapter 48 verse 10, God says, "I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction." Refinement is never gentle, but it is always purposeful. God was removing what could not go with you into the next season. Old fears, hidden pride, dependence on approval, the need to be understood by everyone. Those things would have collapsed under the weight of favor. You were being prepared for capacity. Favor is not light. It brings visibility, responsibility, and spiritual opposition. Without preparation, favor can destroy what it was meant to bless. That is why God allowed pressure to stretch you first. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 16, it says that though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. That inward renewal is what allows you to stand when outward circumstances shake. God was also teaching you discernment. Pain sharpened your hearing, disappointment trained your vision, betrayal taught you boundaries. These were not random wounds. They were lessons that could only be learned through endurance. In James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, it says to consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and perseverance finishes its work so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. You are not lacking because of what you endured. You are equipped because of it. The breaking was not the end, it was the beginning of alignment. Favor is not coming to who you used to be, it is coming to who you became through obedience, humility, and endurance. When you say continue, I'll move forward with the next section. Favor is God's response to faithfulness under fire. Favor does not arrive randomly, and it is never disconnected from character. When God releases favor, He is responding to something He has already observed. You remained faithful when the environment was hostile. You did not abandon your values when pressure demanded compromise. You did not turn bitter when circumstances would have justified it. That kind of faithfulness speaks loudly in the spiritual realm. In Scripture, favor often follows fire. In Daniel chapter 3, after the furnace, it says that the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. The fire did not destroy them, it positioned them. The favor that followed was not accidental, it was God's response to unwavering obedience under threat. In the same way, what tried to consume you only confirmed that God's hand was on you. God watches how you behave when no outcome is guaranteed. Faithfulness under fire means you obeyed without knowing when relief would come. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 6 through 7, it says that, though you have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials, these have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Proven faith always attracts divine response. You may have felt overlooked while others advanced faster, spoke louder, or took shortcuts. But God does not reward noise. He rewards consistency. In Luke chapter 16, verse 10, it says that whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. You were being tested in the small, unseen places. Every choice to stay honest, every refusal to retaliate, every act of obedience when it cost you something was building a case for favor. Favor is also God's way of defending you without requiring explanation. When it comes, it answers questions you no longer need to address. In Psalm chapter 5, verse 12, it says that the Lord blesses the righteous and surrounds them with favor as with a shield. A shield does not argue, it covers. Favor will speak where your voice once fell silent. What you endured was not evidence of delay, it was evidence of trust. God trusted you with fire because He intended to trust you with favor, and when that favor manifests, it will be clear that it was not earned by striving, but released in response to faithfulness that refused to fail. What you lost is being returned in a different form. One of the hardest truths to accept during seasons of endurance is that God does not always restore what was taken in the same shape it left. You may have lost time, relationships, opportunities, or versions of yourself you thought you would carry forever. And for a long time, it may have felt like those losses were final. But God's restoration is never limited to replacement. It is rooted in transformation. In the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, God says that He will restore the years the locust has eaten. Notice that Scripture does not say He returns the locust, He restores the years. That means God does not bring back what harmed you. He repays what it cost you. Time lost in sorrow is repaid in clarity. Energy drained by survival is repaid in peace. Trust broken by people is repaid through deeper dependence on God. Some of what you lost could never return the same way without limiting your future. God removed it because it belonged to a season that could not go where you are going. In Isaiah chapter 61, verse 7, it says that instead of shame you will receive a double portion, and instead of disgrace you will rejoice in your inheritance. Double does not mean identical, it means greater in weight, value, and purpose. You may have grieved things you thought were essential to your calling, only to realize later that God was clearing space for wisdom, space for authority, space for peace that no longer depends on external stability. In Romans chapter 8, verse 18, it says that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us, not around us, in us. That glory is internal before it ever becomes visible. God repays in forms that last. What you lost emotionally is being restored spiritually. What you lost relationally is being restored through discernment and alignment. What you lost materially may be restored, but with stewardship and freedom instead of attachment. God is not trying to give you your past back. He is repaying you with a future that carries less pain and more purpose. The return will feel unfamiliar at first because it no longer requires you to survive. It invites you to live. And when you recognize what God has done, you will understand that nothing was stolen without heaven already planning repayment. When you're ready, say continue, and I'll move forward with the next section. The delay was protection, not denial. There were moments when the waiting felt personal, as if God had singled you out for postponement while others moved forward. You prayed, prepared, stayed faithful, and still watched doors remain closed. Over time, delay can feel like rejection, but in God's economy, delay is often the highest form of protection. In Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21, it says that many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. God was not resisting your progress, He was guarding your future. Some doors stayed shut because walking through them too early would have exposed you to harm you could not yet discern. Favor without readiness can become pressure instead of blessing. Scripture shows this pattern repeatedly. David was anointed king long before he wore the crown. In 1 Samuel chapter 16, he was chosen, but it took years before the throne followed. That delay kept him from ruling with immaturity, revenge, or pride. In Psalm chapter 75, verses 6 through 7, it says that promotion does not come from the east or the west or the desert, but from God, who brings one down and exalts another. Timing belongs to Him. God also delays to separate you from the wrong attachments. Some people could celebrate you in preparation, but would have resented you in fulfillment. Some environments could tolerate your growth, but would have resisted your authority. Delay was God's way of repositioning you so that favor would not be constantly contested. In Genesis chapter 50, verse 20, Joseph said that what others meant for evil, God meant for good, to accomplish what is now being done. The timing made the outcome sustainable. You were also being protected from becoming something you would later regret. Rushed blessing can expose unhealed wounds. Early elevation can amplify insecurity. God waited because He loves you enough to care about who you become, not just what you receive. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11, it says that God makes everything beautiful in its time, not early, not late, in its time. The delay you endured was not a sign of God's absence. It was evidence of His involvement. And now that the season is shifting, you will realize that every closed door preserved you for the moment when favor could arrive without destroying your peace. Say, continue when you're ready for the next section. When favor arrives, it silences every question. There comes a moment when God responds in a way that no explanation could ever match. Favor does not argue your case, it settles it. When God releases favor, it answers doubts, accusations, and misunderstandings without requiring you to defend yourself. What once had to be explained will suddenly be evident. In the life of Joseph, years of false accusations and forgotten promises were not corrected through conversation, they were resolved through elevation. In Genesis chapter 41, it says that Pharaoh took Joseph from the prison and placed him over all the land of Egypt in a single day. No debate, no apology tour. Favor spoke. And when God moves like that, questions become irrelevant. Favor also changes how people hear your voice. The same words that were once ignored suddenly carry weight. The same presence that was once overlooked now commands respect. This is not because you changed your personality, but because God placed His authority on your obedience. In Proverbs chapter 3, verses 3 through 4, it says that when you bind love and faithfulness around your neck, you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. What once resisted you will now cooperate. Doors that required force will open with ease. In Revelation chapter 3, verse 7, it says that what God opens, no one can shut, and what He shuts, no one can open. Favor brings divine finality. It removes uncertainty and replaces it with clarity. This kind of favor also protects you from unnecessary battles. God does not elevate you to fight for validation. He elevates you to walk in peace. In Exodus chapter 14, verse 14, it says that the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. When favor arrives, you no longer need to correct narratives. God does it by outcome. The silence that follows favor is not emptiness, it is resolution. It is the quiet that comes when heaven has spoken clearly, and in that quiet, you will realize that every season of endurance was leading to this moment of unmistakable confirmation. When you are ready, say, continue, and I will complete the conclusion. Conclusion. Take a moment and let this truth settle deeply into your spirit. God has never been confused about your life, and He has never been late concerning His promises. What you endured was not overlooked, and it was not in vain. Heaven has already accounted for every tear, every delay, every act of obedience that cost you something. Repayment is not an emotional idea, it is a divine decision. In Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, it says that those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. Waiting was not about standing still. It was about being strengthened for what was coming. You were being built to carry favor without losing humility, to walk in blessing without forgetting dependence on God. God is not releasing favor to impress others. He is releasing it to restore you, to bring peace where there was strain, to bring clarity where there was confusion, to bring stability where there was constant pressure. In Psalm chapter 30, verse 5, it says that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Mourning is not a concept, it is a season shift. As favor unfolds, guard your heart. Stay rooted in gratitude. Do not rush to explain what God is doing. Live it. The same God who carried you through endurance is now repaying you with purpose, alignment, and peace. And when you look back, you will not only see why the suffering was allowed, you will see how perfectly it prepared you. Remain attentive. Remain faithful. The chapter you are stepping into will make every previous page make sense.